I want to share just a quick story with y'all that I might have shared at some point or another, but I guess it's worth sharing again. There's a friar in our community who's one of my closest friends. He's my classmate. So we started formation together back in the summer of 2013. We were what we call postulant friars. That's kind of the first year together. We were novices together, and eventually we went to seminary together and were ordained together. So a lot of time spent under the same roof. Anyway, for the first few years, I knew this friar. He suffered from, sleep apnea, which is a pretty common thing that I know a lot of people struggle with, except he did not know that he had it. So he would wake up every morning completely exhausted, and he would have no idea why that was. So every afternoon, when we gathered together for as a community for kind of a group holy hour, a group time of adoration, my classmate would fall asleep like clockwork every single time. Probably in no more than 5 minutes, he was out, kind of chin down against his chest, snoring ever so slightly. And the way that our chapel was arranged back in those days in our house of formation was such that like one half of the pews were facing directly the other half of pews. So I used to say whenever we prayed, it was kind of like a battle going back and forth, some kind of a prayer battle. So anyway, this meant that every day I would be staring directly at my classmate as he would slowly nod off to sleep. And of course, I'm supposed to be staring at the Blessed Sacrament, but this was very distracting to me. So I was always watching this. And it was objectively funny, right? The slight snoring, the deep sleep. My other classmates and I would try so hard not to crack up. We would try and fail, but we tried. And then we would try so hard not to give this friar a hard time whenever he eventually did wake up. We didn't want to make a big deal out of it, even though it was funny. We thought, it's best not to draw too much attention to this, so we'll figure just let it be. Again, very much a challenge, right? We're guys. We are kind of hardwired to kind of get on each other's cases. So anyway, at some point, my classmate discovered that he had this sleep apnea. Like I said, he didn't know that he had it. So he found out that he had this. And he was treated for it, and he found a way to kind of manage it. So all of a sudden, he would wake up every morning with like 10 times the energy of everyone else, right? So he had all this energy all of a sudden, and he wouldn't get tired anymore, and he would stay awake through the whole entire holy hour, no problem whatsoever. So some time passed, and on one particular afternoon, I was more tired than usual. I usually tried to take like a 10-minute power nap before we would start our holy hour. I have mastered the art of the power nap. So I did this so I would just be awake and aware every time we went in to pray. But I just didn't have time for the power nap or whatever this day. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I went into the holy hour feeling very exhausted. So I did my best we've all been there, you're fighting the head nods for about a half an hour, and then I gave in. I was completely just conked out, drooling on myself, out of exhaustion. If any of you ever catch me over in the daily Mass chapel during adoration, you will see very much the same thing, right? So anyway, this holy hour comes to an end, and I woke up. Maybe somebody woke me up, I don't remember. We all go downstairs to prepare dinner. And we're hanging out, we're talking, and suddenly my classmate, the one who used to fall asleep every single day, right? The one who would fall asleep every single day, he gets this big grin on his face, right? And he's looking at me, and he's kind of leans forward, and I can tell he's about to say something to me, and I don't know what he's going to say, and he gives this little chuckle. He says to me, "A little tired today, huh? A little tired today." I'm thinking, oh, no. You did not just say that to me. in my mind at that moment, I'm replaying the 300 times I've seen my dude fall asleep in the chapel, and 300 times I've fought tooth and nail to not give him grief for it. And although I definitely wanted to, I'm no saint. I just wanted to come right back at him in that moment. No way am I going to let somebody rag on me like that and just sit there and remain silent without kind of clapping back, right? And it's at that point that, to make matters worse, as I'm having this internal battle, out of the corner of my eye, I see one of the other friars, and he is miming a slow, underhand softball toss. Just this big meatball right out over the plate that you're just ready to just take a swing and just send it into orbit, right? And I don't think I've ever been so perfectly set up to just completely tear into someone. Every bit of ammunition was right there. All I had to do was load it up and use it. But in that moment, something said to me, we'll call it the Holy Spirit, something said to me, just let it go. Just let it go, just let it be. And I wanted to fight that voice inside of my head so badly. No, you don't understand. This is my perfect chance. I can win this thing. I can win this interaction. But the voice persisted. Don't do it. Don't do it. So I stayed quiet. Whatever comebacks I had planned on the, tip of my tongue, I reluctantly swallowed back into my throat, and they sat there and burned, like when you drink too much hot chocolate real fast. The comebacks, they just burned so bad. So bad. They burned so bad that I have to tell you this story 10 years later just so you can feel sorry for me and tell me what a good guy I am for not hitting that slow pitch left out over the plate, even though I wanted to. And by the way, just I think a kind of a disclaimer, I can't even imagine how many times this particular classmate could have torn into me for something and chose not to. So I feel like, if anything, I was probably just trying to repay the favor in that moment. But okay, so I've heard it said before that everyday martyrdom, we think of martyrdom, blood and swords and fire and gruesome stuff, right? But everyday martyrdom is attained in the word left unsaid. I'll say that again. That's one of my favorite lines. Everyday martyrdom is attained in the word left unsaid. One of our most available opportunities to die to ourselves, as we're called to do as Christians, is to swallow that cutting word, to withhold that easy insult, to delete that perfect sarcastic comment on social media that we've been crafting for 15 minutes, right? To choose not to say the thing that, hey, would be well within our rights to say, right? To choose not to bring up that past wrong that's so glaringly obvious, but to choose not to bring it up in an argument against a friend, a spouse, even a child. It sounds goofy, but that is indeed true martyrdom. That is real martyrdom. There's rarely anything that hurts our pride more than surrendering when we feel we could have won, leaving a round in the chamber when we feel it could have been the shot that won us the battle. And that, I think, is very much what we hear in our first reading today from this first book of Samuel, right? We have this kind of scene playing out. Just to give you, it's just a little bit of a snapshot, so I'll give you just the essential background here. Saul is afraid of David, right? He's afraid that David will essentially usurp his position. So out of fear, Saul is chasing down David, trying to kill him. But then one night, Saul is asleep in his camp. He's in his tent, and David actually comes upon Saul. Again, Saul is trying to kill David. So David comes upon Saul, and he sees him asleep, and at his head is a spear thrust into the ground. It's kind of, if you can imagine, kind of standing upright right next to Saul's head. So everybody's asleep. All the guards are asleep. No one would be any the wiser. the weapon of Saul's demise is literally pointed right at him, right? All it would take for David to win this ongoing conflict is to pick up the spear and thrust it down. It is literally the slowest of slow pitches over the plate for David. It's the easiest opportunity to win, but he doesn't take it. And he tells his companion, Abishai, not to take it either. Listen to what David says. This is a great line. He says, "Do not harm Saul, for who can lay hands on the Lord's anointed and remain unpunished?" Who can lay hands on the Lord's anointed? I think we should all take that same stance, right? Do not use your words, your actions, to harm your friend, your spouse, your children, the person who keeps commenting mean things to you on Facebook, right? For they are the Lord's anointed. They are men and women, boys and girls made in the image and likeness of God. They are creatures with dignity, and we should never use people as an opportunity to kind of flex our pride and score points and win battles. What does Jesus say in our gospel today? Boy, do we ever need to hear this, right? To you who hear I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. For if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do the same. You know, we live in a world where it really does feel like Christians and non-Christians alike disregard this teaching in equal measure. We are all equal opportunity offenders when it comes to this particular teaching of Jesus. It's like we have all come to this mutual conclusion that this one teaching of Jesus is just plain stupid, and we're going to just ignore it and pretend that he never said it and that he never lived it. You know, I think we spill a lot of ink these days about what it means to be a good Christian in the 21st century, what it means to be Christ-like, right? We get into some pretty good debates about who is and isn't acting like Jesus these days. And sometimes, ironically, we will have all of these debates, all while continuing to hate our enemy, right? There's nothing more incoherent than reading or listening to some of the disgusting things that we sling back and forth at each other in our society today while still claiming to be representatives of Jesus. And, you know, I think of some of the things that I just come across every day as I'm spending way too much time on the internet, you know, on scrolling YouTube or comments or Instagram comments or Twitter comments or whatever. I can just think of some of the ridiculous things I've heard. You know, you'll come across a comment that'll say something like, well, so much for following the gospel, you Nazi, you should be more like me. Better pick up the Bible, baby killer. You've got a long way to go until you follow Jesus as closely as I do. Racist, bigot, fascist, some example of Christ you are, if only you had your act together like me. Right? We're so quick to want to make everyone an enemy these days, to treat others as some kind of dragon to slay, rather than a fellow soul created by God, an individual in need of grace and mercy. We're so quick to want to find that word that makes us feel superior, that insult that wins us the argument, that clever quip that makes us look good in front of everybody who happens to be watching. Where's the charity? Where's the charity? Where's the genuine concern for souls? Jesus, of course, doesn't want us to be pushovers, right? He doesn't want a bunch of doormats as Christians, but he demands charity. He demands charity. He demands that we, as St. Paul says, say only the good things that men need to hear, things that will truly help them. Are we saying the things that are truly going to help others? Are we genuinely caring for and praying for those with whom we have perhaps very strong disagreements? Are we just trying to destroy them to make ourselves look better? Are we just trying to hit that slow pitch over the plate so we can kind of do a home run trot around the bases and clown everybody as we do our celebration? I fear that that is becoming the state of discourse these days. And even worse, I fear that that mentality creeps into things even more personal, right? Our relationships, our personal relationships, our families, our marriages. This life is not about winning battles over people. This life isn't about getting in the last word and claiming victory. The only victory to be won in this life is the victory of Jesus on the cross. And he already won that victory. He already won it. We don't have to fire any weapons or throw any spears in order to win it. It's been accomplished already. All we have to do is place our faith in Jesus, live according to his commands, and he commands us to turn the other cheek. That is exactly what put him on the cross, by the way. He could have defended himself. He chose not to. That's what we're called to imitate. He commands us to watch that slow pitch go over the plate and to keep the bat pressed up against our shoulder. He commands us to speak the truth in love, only opening our mouths to challenge others when we genuinely desire the best for them, not just the best for us. So I pray that we keep this in mind. All of us, something I know we all probably struggle with in some way or another. Ask the Lord for strength in this great challenge, this great martyrdom that's set before us. Lord, help me. Help me to be an everyday martyr by leaving a word unsaid. When I have the perfect comeback, the cutting word, the great sarcastic remark, help me to swallow it. Help me to leave the insulting reply untyped. Help me to leave that mean-spirited comment unposted. And help me to do it not out of pride or so I can, pat myself on the back, but to do it out of charity, out of a genuine desire to preserve the state of my own soul while choosing to use my own words or even my lack of words to help others grow in holiness.